Hey guys! Tonight, we're going to embark on a whispered journey through time. A gentle drift back to ancient Asian tea rituals so profoundly calming. They became the historical equivalent of a warm blanket and a perfectly whispered lullaby. Imagine, if you will, the flickering oil lamp casting long shadows on a quiet wall, the scent of damp earth and distant incense, and the slow, deliberate movements of hands preparing a brew designed not to awaken, but to soothe, to quiet the racing thoughts that often plague the edges of night. You're nestled deep within a history that stretches back millennia, where sleep wasn't just a biological necessity, but a state to be coaxed, invited, and sometimes even celebrated with a cup. And let's be honest, in our buzzing modern world, you probably won't survive a full night without checking your phone. But tonight, we're going to try. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to think of us all sharing this quiet moment across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our story begins in the misty, verdant mountains of ancient China, a land where tea wasn't merely a beverage, but a whisper from the earth itself. You find yourself transported to an era long before your modern kettle, perhaps even before the concept of a cup as you know it. Here, the very earliest uses of tea were far from the social gatherings or elegant ceremonies that would later define it. No, in its infancy, tea was medicine. You see the earliest records, dating back to the legendary Emperor Shen Nung, often credited with discovering tea around 2737 BCE. Now, whether he literally stumbled upon it when leaves drifted into his boiling water, or if that's a charming ancient PR story, historians still argue whether Shen Nung was a real individual or a mythical compilation of early agricultural knowledge. Either way, the legend highlights tea's profound early recognition for its beneficial properties. Imagine yourself, not a modern consumer, but an early peasant, perhaps struggling with a restless night. You'd seek out a local shaman or healer, not for a pill, but for a handful of dried leaves, perhaps brewed in a rudimentary earthenware pot over an open fire. This was a mainstream historical fact. Tea was initially a pharmacopoeia of the ancients, its bitter brew employed to alleviate headaches, soothe digestive woes, and yes, even to calm the mind and invite sleep. You weren't reaching for a chamomile. You were reaching for tea. The leaves, often picked wild from ancient tea trees, were not processed with the precision of today's delicate green or black teas. Instead, they were likely sun-dried, perhaps pressed into crude cakes, and then boiled vigorously. The resulting infusion would have been robust, earthy, and packed with whatever compounds the wild leaves contained. You might chew on a few leaves directly, feeling the astringency on your tongue. A sharp tang followed by a curious sense of clarity. This wasn't about flavor profiles, it was about function. Now, here's a quirky tidbit. Some early texts suggest that tea was occasionally mixed with other calming herbs, or even with opium poppy extracts, to enhance its sedative effects. It was a kind of ancient cocktail, a very different kind of sleepy time tea than what you might find on your supermarket shelf today. Of course, the use of opium was far more widespread and less stigmatized then, but it paints a picture of just how desperate people were for a good night's rest, and how resourceful they were in combining what nature offered. You can almost hear the ancient equivalent of a shrug. Hey, whatever works. Right. The act of preparing this medicinal brew itself would have been a ritual of sorts. You'd gather the leaves, perhaps crush them with a stone, boil the water over a carefully tended fire, and then patiently wait for the infusion to darken. This wasn't a grab-and-go experience. It was a slow, deliberate process. A quiet moment of focus before the anticipated calm. And in that slowness, that deliberate attention, lies the very first seed of the mindful tea rituals that would blossom over centuries. You were, perhaps unknowingly, engaging in a form of meditation through preparation, slowing your breath, quieting your mind as you waited for the steam to rise. This was a far cry from the instantaneous gratification of instant coffee, or even your beloved sleepy podcasts. You had to work for your tranquility. Even in these earliest stages, the Chinese recognized tea's unique ability to bridge the gap between wakefulness and slumber. It wasn't about knocking you out cold. It was about guiding you gently to the threshold of sleep, easing the anxieties of the day. You weren't simply drinking a liquid. You were partaking in a natural prescription, a whispered remedy from the very land you walked upon. And as the centuries rolled on, and tea cultivation became more sophisticated, this inherent calming property remained at its core, even as its social and ceremonial roles expanded. You could say it was tea's original superpower, before it became famous for its afternoon tea parties or its role in energizing revolutionary movements. It was the quiet healer, the unseen friend that whispered, "Rest now." As the centuries turned, you find yourself drifting from the raw, medicinal beginnings of tea in ancient China to a more refined, yet still deeply spiritual, period, the Tang Dynasty, flourishing from 618 to 907 CE. This era wasn't just a golden age for poetry and art. It was a pivotal moment for tea, transforming it from a mere remedy into an art form, inextricably linked with Zen Buddhism. Imagine, if you will, the serene courtyards of a Buddhist monastery high in the mountains, mist clinging to the cypress trees, and the faint scent of incense carried on a gentle breeze. You observe monks, their movements deliberate and flowing, preparing tea not just for sustenance, but as a path to enlightenment. This was a mainstream historical fact The Tang dynasty saw tea become deeply interwoven with the contemplative practices of Zen Buddhism, particularly amongst the elite and monastic communities. You watch as a monk, his robes rustling softly, takes a tea cake, for tea was often pressed into cakes then, like little green bricks, and carefully roasts it over a low flame. The air fills with a subtly toasted aroma, a far cry from the raw, earthy scent of earlier brews. Then, with a mortar and pestle, he grinds the roasted cake into a fine powder, a meditative rhythm in each gentle tap. This powdered tea, often referred to as matcha's ancestor, was then whisked into a frothy green liquid, a stark contrast to the rough boiled leaves of earlier times. The entire process, from roasting to grinding to whisking, was a slow, mindful dance, each step designed to focus the mind and calm the spirit. You don't just drink the tea, you experience its creation, a quiet symphony of simple actions. This was not about a quick pick-me-up. No. The Tang tea ritual was about cultivating mindfulness and finding inner peace. You're not rushing, you're savoring each moment, each sensory input. The warmth of the bowl in your hands, the vibrant green of the whisked tea, the subtle bitterness giving way to a lingering sweetness. All these elements conspired to draw you into the present moment, a gentle anchor in a busy mind. It was, in essence, an early form of ASMR, a quiet symphony for the senses designed to lull you into a state of tranquility. Here's a quirky tidbit. The most famous tea sage of this era was Lu Yu, whose definitive work, the classic of Tea Cha Jing, written around 760 CE, codified these elaborate rituals. Imagine a whole book dedicated to tea, covering everything from cultivation to preparation, centuries before anyone thought to write a definitive guide to coffee, or even how to make a decent toasted sandwich. Lu Yu was, in a way, the world's first tea influencer, setting standards for elegance and mindfulness that would echo through the ages. He famously detailed how to choose the right water, the perfect fire, and even the ideal utensils, emphasizing the subtle art of tea preparation as a path to inner harmony. You can almost hear him, a gentle sigh escaping his lips. If your water isn't quite right. Historians still argue whether Lu Yu's detailed instructions were widely adopted by the common people or remained primarily within the elite and monastic circles. Was it a widespread practice, or more of a niche pursuit for the truly dedicated regardless? His influence cemented tea's connection to spiritual practices, especially those aiming for mental clarity and calmness. You're not just drinking a cup of tea, you're participating in a historical conversation about wellness and contemplation. The integration of tea into Zen meditation was profound. You see monks using tea not to stay awake during long meditation sessions, but to achieve a state of alert relaxation. The tea calmed the nervous system, thanks to compounds like what we now know as L-theanine, which promotes alpha brainwaves. creating a state of focused calm without drowsiness. It was the perfect pre-meditation tonic, quieting the internal chatter and allowing the mind to settle. You might notice your own breath deepening, your shoulders relaxing, as you imagine partaking in such a ritual. The monk wouldn't just sip. He would observe the steam rising, the subtle shifts in color, the tiny bubbles on the surface, all part of a visual meditation. The tea houses of the Tang dynasty, while perhaps less formal than monastic settings, also offered a refuge from the clamor of daily life. You might find yourself in a quiet corner, watching scholars debate poetry or artists paint intricate landscapes, all while sipping on a carefully prepared bowl of whisked tea. These weren't rowdy taverns. They were havens of intellectual and spiritual respite, places where the gentle clinking of porcelain and the soft murmur of conversation created an atmosphere conducive to reflection and repose. The tea itself was an invitation to slow down, to breathe, to simply be. You're not checking your phone. You're just existing in that moment. The very act of preparing and consuming tea in the Tang dynasty was a lesson in patience and presence. You didn't gulp it down, you savored it. Each sip was a small act of mindfulness, a reminder to appreciate the simple pleasures and to find peace in the quiet moments. This was a foundational step in tea's journey as a sleep aid, not through direct sedation, but through mindful preparation and consumption, easing the mind into a state receptive to rest. It was about creating an internal environment conducive to sleep, rather than forcing slumber. You were cultivating tranquility, not just drinking it. This holistic approach, integrating body and mind through a simple daily ritual, set the stage for tea's continued evolution as a revered sleep aid throughout Asian history. From the serene, contemplative monasteries of the Tang dynasty, you gently glide forward in time to the Song dynasty, 960-1279 CE, an era often celebrated for its cultural efflorescence and refined aesthetics. Here, the art of tea reached new heights of elegance, transforming into elaborate, almost performative ceremonies centered around whisked tea. Imagine yourself in a grand estate, perhaps by a tranquil garden pond, where scholars and aristocrats gather not just to discuss philosophy, but to witness and partake in the intricate dance of tea preparation. This wasn't merely drink it, it was a deeply sophisticated ritual, a mainstream historical fact of the Song period, and one that was inherently calming. The powdered tea tradition, nascent in the Tang, truly blossomed here. You see a finely ground, vibrant green powder, often stored in exquisitely crafted ceramic jars. The preparation involved heating water to a precise temperature, then adding a small amount of the powdered tea to a ceramic bowl. What followed was the quintessential Song dynasty gesture, the vigorous whisking with a bamboo whisk, called a chison. You can almost hear the rhythmic swish, swish, swish as the whisk rapidly froths the tea into a thick, jade-green foam. its surface often adorned with delicate patterns created by the master's touch. This wasn't a quick stir. It was a precise, almost hypnotic motion, designed to create a velvety texture and an inviting visual appeal. The pursuit of perfection in this froth was paramount. A thick, stable foam was considered the mark of a skilled tea preparer, reflecting not just technical mastery, but also a deep understanding of the tea itself. You might even find yourself critiquing the foam's density, a subtle nod of approval, or a quiet furrow of the brow indicating your discerning taste. This attention to detail, this meticulous crafting of each bowl, inherently slowed down the process, drawing you fully into the present moment. It was a sensory meditation, focusing on the visual beauty, the subtle aroma, and the tactile warmth of the bowl. Here's a quirky tidbit about the whisked tea Dian Cha. As this method was known, wasn't just about drinking, it was about tea contests. Imagine refined gentlemen and ladies gathering for tea fighting, where participants would compete to produce the whitest, most stable foam, or to discern the subtle differences in aroma and taste between different batches of tea. It was a serious, yet utterly refined, competition. A bit like a modern-day sommelier championship, but with more elegant robes and less public spitting. These contests, while competitive, still fostered an atmosphere of focused concentration, requiring a calm mind to achieve victory. You'd be holding your breath, not out of suspense, but out of quiet anticipation for the perfect froth. Historians still argue whether the tea contests, despite their competitive nature, actually fostered or detracted from the original Zen principles of tranquility associated with tea. Did the desire to win overshadow the meditative aspects, or did the intense focus required for perfection ultimately lead to a deeper state of calm? Regardless, the competitive element highlights just how central and refined tea had become in Song society. Beyond the contests, Dian Cha found its true calming power in its deliberate pace and aesthetic focus. You weren't just consuming a beverage, you were engaging in an experience that engaged all your senses. The subtle aroma of the tea, often infused with fragrant spices or flowers, would gently fill the air. The visual beauty of the jade green froth, sometimes with delicate patterns drawn on its surface, would invite contemplation. The warmth of the ceramic bowl in your hands, and the velvety texture of the liquid as it touched your lips, all contributed to a profound sense of tranquility. It was a multi-sensory lullaby. The Song dynasty also saw the rise of tea houses that were not just places for social gathering, but sanctuaries of peace. You would enter these establishments, often adorned with calligraphy and landscape paintings, and find a quiet solace amidst the day's bustle. These weren't rowdy pubs, they were havens for quiet conversation, scholarly pursuits, and, most importantly, the calming ritual of whisked tea. You'd sit, perhaps with a scroll of poetry, and allow the gentle rhythm of the tea preparation to wash over you. easing the tensions of the day. The social aspect of Song tea culture was also significant. You might participate in a tea gathering with close friends, sharing quiet conversation and appreciating the beauty of the tea ceremony together. This shared experience, in a serene setting, fostered a sense of connection and well-being, further enhancing the tea's calming effects. There's something inherently soothing about sharing a quiet, beautiful moment with others, especially when a perfectly frothed cup of tea is involved. It was a form of social therapy, minus the therapists and the copay. The legacy of the Song dynasty's whisked tea is clear. It firmly established tea as a sophisticated art form, deeply intertwined with aesthetics, mindfulness, and the pursuit of inner peace. You see how the transition from raw medicine to refined ritual further cemented tea's role in facilitating a state of calm, a gentle precursor to sleep. The deliberate, artistic nature of the preparation, the focus on sensory details, and the peaceful environment created around it all conspired to ease the mind and prepare the body for rest. You weren't merely drinking, you were practicing a graceful, ancient form of self-care. This focus on beauty and presence paved the way for even more elaborate and meditative tea traditions to emerge in other Asian cultures, each seeking their own unique path to tranquility through the humble tea leaf. Leaving the elegant, foam-frothing courts of Song dynasty China, you now gently cross the sea, carried on the soft whispers of Buddhist monks and refined aesthetics, to the archipelago of Japan. Here, tea underwent a profound metamorphosis, evolving into chado, the way of tea, a ritual that transcends mere beverage consumption to become a holistic pursuit of tranquility and aesthetic perfection. Imagine stepping into a secluded tea house nestled amidst a raked gravel garden. The air still and silent, save for the distant trickle of water and the rustle of bamboo. You feel an immediate sense of peace, a deliberate stripping away of the outside world's clamor. This cultivation of a profound sense of inner peace through tea is a mainstream historical fact of Japanese culture. The Zen Buddhist influence, which was already strong in China during the Tang and Song dynasties, found its most distilled expression in Japan's chado. You learn that every single movement in the tea ceremony, from the way the water is poured to the angle at which the bowl is presented, is meticulously choreographed. This isn't about rigid rules for the sake of it. It's about mindfulness in motion. You observe the host's hands, their gestures graceful and unhurried. Each action a silent meditation. The aim is to create an atmosphere of wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and transience, and ichigo ichie, one time, one meeting, emphasizing the unique, unrepeatable nature of each encounter. You are seated on a tatami mat, the scent of fresh straw and the faint aroma of matcha filling the small, intimate space. The tea itself is the same vibrant powdered green tea you saw in Song China. But here, its preparation is elevated to an almost spiritual art. The host carefully purifies the utensils, warms the bowl, and then, with precise scoops of a bamboo ladle, adds the matcha to the bowl. Then comes the whisking, often with more vigorous, yet still controlled, movements than its Chinese counterpart, aiming for a frothy, bright green surface. You can hear the gentle but firm swish of the bamboo whisk against the ceramic, a sound that in itself becomes a soothing auditory anchor. Here's a quirky tidbit. The famous warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a powerful figure in 16th century Japan, was obsessed with tea ceremonies. He even hosted grand, elaborate outdoor tea gatherings for thousands, sometimes inviting everyone, regardless of social status, to partake. Picture this formidable military leader, known for his ruthlessness, also being a connoisseur of quiet, contemplative tea. It's a fascinating paradox that underscores the pervasive influence and calming power of tea, even on the most intense personalities. You might imagine him, after a long day of conquest, finding solace in the careful placement of a tea bowl. Historians still argue whether Hideyoshi's massive, public tea ceremonies truly embodied the deep spiritual principles of Chado, or if they were more a display of political power and cultural sophistication. Did the grandeur overshadow the inner contemplation, or did it merely spread the meditative practice to a wider audience regardless? His fascination highlights the cultural significance of tea during a turbulent period. The very essence of Chado is to slow down, to be present, and to find beauty in simplicity. You are encouraged to observe the subtle nuances, the quality of the light filtering through the shoji screen, the delicate glaze on the ceramic tea bowl, the warmth radiating from the prepared tea. This hyperfocus on sensory details pulls you out of the external world's distractions and grounds you firmly in the now. It's an ancient form of mindfulness, predating your smartphone by a good millennium or so. The quietude of the ceremony is a deliberate design, intended to calm the mind and ease the body. The tea ceremony wasn't explicitly designed as a sleep aid, but its profound calming effects are undeniable. By immersing yourself in the meticulous ritual, you allow your mind to shed its burdens and anxieties. The repetitive, graceful movements of the host, the warm steam rising from the bowl, the slightly bitter, earthy taste of the matcha, followed by its sweet aftertaste. All these elements conspire to create a state of deep relaxation. You feel your muscles unwind, your breathing deepen, and your mental chatter quiet. It's a deliberate transition from the active world to a state of receptive calm, perfectly setting the stage for restful sleep. You leave the tea house feeling not energized, but profoundly soothed, as if a gentle hand has smoothed away the wrinkles in your mind. The discipline of the ceremony, far from being restrictive, becomes liberating, freeing you from the constant demands of thought. This deep peace, cultivated through the art of tea, is what makes Chado such a powerful, if indirect, aid for insomnia. You learn that by teaching you to slow down, to appreciate silence, and to focus on the present moment. Chado offers a timeless pathway to tranquility, a pathway that ultimately leads to a more peaceful night's rest. It's not just about drinking tea, it's about drinking in calm. Drifting gracefully from the meticulously choreographed serenity of Japanese Chado. You now find yourself traversing the tranquil landscapes of the Korean peninsula. Here, tea culture, though perhaps less overtly theatrical than its Japanese counterpart, boasts a profound, understated elegance known as Davon, or the way of tea. Imagine a scholar's quiet study, perhaps in a traditional hanok house with curved eaves, where the gentle light filters through paper screens and the scent of aged wood and ink mingles with the subtle aroma of tea. You witness a deep connection between the quiet ritual of tea and the pursuit of knowledge and inner reflection. This link to scholarly pursuits and a refined simplicity is a mainstream historical fact of Korean tea culture. Korean Davon, while sharing roots with Chinese and Japanese traditions, developed its own distinct character, often characterized by its emphasis on naturalness, simplicity, and a quiet respect for the tea itself. You won't find the elaborate showmanship of some other traditions. Instead, there's a humble sincerity in each movement. The Korean tea ceremony often involves fewer utensils, reflecting a philosophy of minimalist beauty. You observe the host, perhaps a venerable scholar or a revered monk, carefully selecting the tea leaves, often a green tea, but sometimes fermented teas like Hwangcha yellow tea, or even herbal infusions, and placing them gently into a ceramic pot. The water, often drawn from a pristine mountain spring, is heated to the perfect temperature, and then poured over the leaves. The emphasis is on drawing out the true essence of the tea, allowing its natural flavors and aromas to unfold. You might notice the host patiently waiting for the infusion, not rushing, but allowing the leaves to slowly unfurl and release their essence. This patience is central to the calming experience. The resulting brew is then poured into small, often rustic, unglazed ceramic cups, whose natural imperfections are celebrated as part of their beauty. You hold the warm cup, feeling its earthy texture, and take a slow, deliberate sip, allowing the tea to awaken your senses without overwhelming them. Here's a quirky tidbit during certain periods. Tea in Korea was so intertwined with scholastic life that it was believed drinking specific teas could enhance concentration and promote clarity of thought for those preparing for rigorous civil service exams. Imagine cramming for your finals, not with energy drinks, but with specially prepared calming teas, believed to sharpen your wits and soothe your nerves. You might even find yourself wishing your professors offered a tea for exam success elective. It was a subtle blend of practical application and spiritual belief. Historians still argue whether the emphasis on tea for scholarly focus sometimes overshadowed its spiritual or meditative aspects in daily Korean life. Was it primarily a tool for intellectual enhancement, Or did its quiet ritual inherently bring forth a deeper contemplation? Regardless, the connection between tea and intellectual pursuits highlights its role in fostering a calm and clear mind. The serenity of Davan lies in its unhurried pace and its invitation to introspection. You're encouraged to connect with the natural elements, the earthiness of the clay pottery, the freshness of the water, the subtle bitterness and lingering sweetness of the tea leaves. Each sip is a moment of quiet reflection, a pause in the often demanding rhythm of scholarly or monastic life. You might close your eyes for a moment, simply feeling the warmth of the tea and allowing your thoughts to drift away, leaving only a sense of peaceful presence. Korean tea houses, often called chari or dabang, were traditionally places of quiet retreat and intellectual discourse. You would find them in tranquil settings, perhaps overlooking a mountain vista or a peaceful garden, offering a sanctuary from the bustling world. These spaces were designed to foster contemplation and scholarly exchange, with the tea serving as a gentle catalyst for deep thought and calm conversation. It wasn't a place for boisterous chatter. It was a place for whispers, for shared silence, and for the quiet pursuit of wisdom. The ritual itself, with its focus on slow, deliberate actions and natural beauty, inherently prepares the mind and body for rest. You're not just drinking tea. You're participating in a quiet ceremony that encourages you to shed the anxieties of the day. The gentle warmth of the tea, the soothing aroma, and the mindful sips all contribute to a state of relaxed awareness. This makes Davan an effective, if indirect, method for soothing insomnia. By immersing yourself in its simplicity and natural flow, you allow your nervous system to settle, inviting a peaceful transition into sleep. You learn that in Korea. The path to a calm mind and a restful night was often found in the quiet elegance of a humble cup of tea, a testament to the power of gentle ritual in a busy world. From the quiet scholarly retreats of Korea, you now ascend to the breathtaking, often harsh, altitudes of the Himalayan plateau, a land dominated by majestic peaks and a unique, hearty tea tradition, Tibetan butter tea, or po cha. Imagine the biting mountain wind whipping around you, the air thin and cold, and the stark, rugged landscape stretching endlessly. In this formidable environment, tea isn't just a beverage, it's a vital source of warmth, energy, and nourishment. A mainstream historical fact of Tibetan daily life. Po cha is unlike any tea you've encountered so far. Forget delicate infusions or frothy matcha. This is a robust, savory brew designed to sustain life in extreme conditions. You observe a Tibetan woman, her face weathered by sun and wind, preparing the tea. First, she boils a strong, dark brick tea, often imported from China via ancient caravan routes. This tea is allowed to brew for hours, sometimes even overnight, creating a potent, concentrated liquid. You can smell the rich, earthy aroma, a deep contrast to the light floral notes of other teas. Once the strong tea is ready, it's combined with a generous dollop of yak butter and a pinch of salt in a special wooden churn called a chandong. She then plunges a long, slender paddle into the churn and begins a vigorous, rhythmic churning motion. The sound is a steady, almost hypnotic thump, thump, thump as the tea, butter, and salt emulsify into a thick, creamy, somewhat soup-like liquid. You might raise an eyebrow at the thought of salty, buttery tea. But in this environment, it's not just palatable, it's essential. Here's a quirky tidbit. Traditional Tibetan homes often have a communal pot of po cha simmering constantly on the stove, or sometimes even a large chandong where family members can add more ingredients and rechurn throughout the day. It's the ultimate ancient slow cooker, always ready to offer sustenance and warmth. You can imagine stumbling in from a long day, chilled to the bone, and being offered a steaming bowl of this fortifying brew. It's less about a formal ceremony and more about continuous, comforting sustenance. Historians still argue whether the origins of po cha were purely utilitarian, born out of the necessity for calories and warmth in a high-altitude environment, or if there was an underlying spiritual significance to its constant presence and sharing within Tibetan households. Did its communal nature also contribute to a sense of shared calm and well-being? Regardless, its practical benefits are undisputed. The calming effect of po cha isn't subtle, it's visceral. You feel the immediate warmth spreading through your body, a deep, comforting heat that combats the external cold. The fat from the yak butter provides sustained energy, preventing the sharp peaks and valleys of blood sugar that can disrupt sleep. The salt helps replenish electrolytes, crucial at altitude where dehydration is a constant threat. But beyond the physiological benefits, there's a profound psychological comfort in this brew. You sit cross-legged on a cushion, sipping the hot, savory liquid from a simple wooden bowl. The richness coats your mouth, and the saltiness is surprisingly pleasant. It's a grounding sensation, connecting you to the earth and the resilient spirit of the Tibetan people. The rhythmic churning, the communal sharing, and the simple act of warming your hands around the bowl all contribute to a sense of peace and security. In a world of vast emptiness and challenging conditions, po cha offers a tangible anchor of comfort and safety. While not explicitly a sleep tea in the modern sense, po cha's ability to deeply nourish and warm the body, and to provide a sustained, calming energy, makes it an excellent aid for robust rest in an unforgiving climate. You can imagine a long day of travel or meditation, followed by a quiet evening by the hearth, sipping po cha as the wind howls outside. It prepares the body for deep, restorative sleep, not by sedating it, but by utterly satisfying its fundamental needs. You're not just drinking tea, you're drinking warmth, energy, and a profound sense of rootedness. This simple, powerful brew allowed the Tibetan people to endure and thrive, offering not just physical sustenance, but a nightly ritual of replenishment that surely eased the way to dreams. Leaving the chilly, high-altitude world of Tibetan butter tea, you descend to the vast, wind-swept steppes of Mongolia, a land where nomadic traditions have shaped a unique and equally robust tea culture. Here, you discover Mongolian Soothed, or milk tea, a brew that is far more than just a drink. It's a fundamental pillar of nomadic life, offering sustenance, warmth, and a profound sense of grounding in an often unforgiving environment. Imagine yourself inside a cozy yurt, the felt walls keeping out the elements, the central stove radiating warmth, and the rhythmic clinkings of bowls as a family shares their daily brew. This grounding role of Mongolian milk tea in nomadic life is a mainstream historical fact. Soothed is prepared in a large cauldron over an open fire, reflecting the practicalities of nomadic existence. You observe the matriarch of the family, her movements practiced and efficient, adding brick tea, often the same type of dark. Compressed tea favored in Tibet to boiling water. But here, the distinct addition comes in the form of milk, typically from mares, yaks, or camels, depending on the animals being herded. A pinch of salt is always included, much like in Tibet, and sometimes a handful of roasted millet or flour is added to make it even more substantial. The mixture is then stirred and simmered, often for a long time, allowing the flavors to meld into a rich, creamy, and deeply savory concoction. You might find the taste surprising at first, a salty, milky tea with a hint of roasted grain. But as you sip it from a wide, shallow bowl, you begin to understand its appeal. It's incredibly warming and surprisingly filling, offering sustained energy in a landscape where food sources might be scarce and meals irregular. This is not a delicate, contemplative brew. It's a powerful, utilitarian elixir designed to nourish and sustain, and in its very essence, to soothe the body and mind amidst the vastness of the steppe. Here's a quirky tidbit. Mongolian custom dictates that when a guest enters a jar, the first thing offered, even before food, is a bowl of Soothed. Refusing it is considered highly impolite. This ritual of offering and acceptance immediately establishes a sense of hospitality, trust, and belonging. It's a silent language of welcome, designed to put the traveler at ease, which, in the context of long journeys and uncertain encounters, would be inherently calming. You're not just accepting a drink, you're accepting an embrace of comfort. Historians still argue whether the prevalence of Soothed among nomadic peoples was solely due to its nutritional benefits, or if the ritual of communal sharing around the jar fire also played a significant role in fostering social cohesion and psychological well-being. Did the shared warmth and sustenance provide a collective sense of security and calm against the harsh elements? Regardless, its practical and social functions are undeniable. The calming effect of Soothed is tied directly to its role as a stable, comforting presence in a life of constant movement. For the nomadic Mongols, the Gyur is their home, and the Soothed Insomnia is its beating heart. The steady warmth of the stove, the gentle bubbling of the tea, and the quiet camaraderie of sharing a bowl with family after a long day of herding or travel all contribute to a profound sense of safety and belonging. You can imagine the weariness of a day spent on horseback, under an immense sky, melting away with each warm, nourishing sip. This tea provides a steady release of energy from the milk fats and carbohydrates, preventing the sharp blood sugar drops that can disrupt sleep. The warmth penetrates deeply, easing tired muscles and preparing the body for rest. But it's the ritual of consistency. The knowledge that this comforting brew will always be there, that offers a deep psychological balm. It's a reliable anchor in a fluid world, a signal to the body and mind that it's time to settle, to be nourished, and to find repose. While Soothed Insomnia isn't a sedative tea, its power to thoroughly nourish, warm, and ground the body in a harsh environment makes it an unparalleled aid for deep, restorative sleep. It addresses the fundamental needs of the body, allowing the mind to quiet naturally. You aren't just drinking tea. You're participating in an ancient, communal ritual of sustenance and safety, preparing yourself for a night of peaceful slumber under the vast, starry Mongolian sky. This gentle, nurturing brew allowed an entire civilization to thrive in challenging conditions, always ensuring that a calming end to the day was within reach. Section 8. Leaving the expansive, wind-swept steppes of Mongolia. You now descend into the lush, emerald embrace of Southeast Asia. This region, a vibrant tapestry of cultures and ecosystems, offers a different kind of calming brew not always true. Tea from the Camellia sinensis plant, but a diverse and ancient array of herbal infusions sourced directly from the dense forests and fertile lands. Imagine stepping into a bustling village market, the air thick with the scent of exotic spices, damp earth, and unfamiliar blossoms, where remedies for every ailment, including sleeplessness, are found in nature's bounty. This widespread use of calming herbal brews beyond traditional tea leaves is a mainstream historical fact across Southeast Asian cultures. You observe an elderly woman, perhaps a village healer or a knowledgeable grandmother, carefully sorting through bundles of dried roots, bark, leaves, and flowers. Her hands move with practiced ease, selecting ingredients that have been passed down through generations. Unlike the single-leaf focus of Chinese or Japanese tea, here you find a rich pharmacopoeia of botanicals, each with its own whispered history of efficacy. Common ingredients might include lemongrass, known for its citrusy aroma and muscle-relaxing properties, pandan leaves, which impart a sweet, vanilla-like fragrance and are often used for their soothing effects, ginger, a warming spice that can calm digestive discomfort, often associated with restless nights, and various types of butterfly pea flower, which not only lend a beautiful blue hue, but are also traditionally used for relaxation. The preparation is often simpler than the elaborate ceremonies of East Asia, yet no less mindful. These herbs are typically gently boiled or steeped in hot water, allowing their essences to infuse the liquid. You might see a rustic clay pot simmering over a low fire, releasing a fragrant steam that subtly perfumes the air. The resulting infusion is then poured into simple cups, often without milk or sugar, allowing the natural flavors and auras of the herbs to come through. You take a sip, and the unique blend of earthiness, sweetness, and subtle spiciness washes over your palate, a taste of the forest itself. Here's a quirky tidbit in some parts of Southeast Asia, particularly in Thailand and Vietnam. Certain calming herbal infusions, like those made from gotu kola or various local roots, were not just for drinking. They were sometimes used in calming foot baths or compresses applied to the temples, working externally to soothe the body and quiet the mind before sleep. Imagine dipping your tired feet into a warm, fragrant bath infused with calming herbs after a long day of work, feeling the tension drain away. It's a holistic approach to relaxation, a full-body lullaby. Historians still argue whether the knowledge of these specific calming properties was gained through systematic botanical study or through generations of empirical trial and error, passed down as ancestral wisdom. Did early healers conduct ancient clinical trials? Or was it simply a process of observation and refinement over centuries regardless? The effectiveness of many of these traditional remedies is now being validated by modern science. The calming effect of these Southeast Asian herbal brews is deeply rooted in their natural properties and the cultural context of their use. You are not just consuming a drink, you are partaking in a tradition that honors the earth's healing power. The act of gathering the herbs, preparing the infusion, and slowly sipping it becomes a quiet ritual of self-care. The aromatic compounds, often volatile oils, released by the herbs have direct effects on the nervous system, gently encouraging relaxation. You might notice your breathing deepening, your muscles loosening, and a sense of peaceful drowsiness beginning to settle over you. These infusions are often consumed in the evening, as families wind down after a day of labor in the fields or bustling markets. The quiet moments spent sipping these warm, fragrant drinks serve as a gentle transition from the active world to the realm of rest. They provide a sense of well-being and a physical comfort that helps to quiet an overactive mind and prepare the body for slumber. It's a natural, gentle way to signal to your system that it's time to switch off and embrace the night. So, in Southeast Asia, the path to soothing insomnia often diverged from the familiar tea leaf, instead finding its way through the verdant wisdom of the forest. These diverse, indigenous herbal brews offered a natural, accessible, and deeply comforting way to invite peaceful sleep, a testament to the timeless wisdom of connecting with nature for holistic well-being. Moving westward from the verdant herbal remedies of Southeast Asia, you now arrive in the ancient and vibrant land of India, where the profound wisdom of Ayurveda has guided health and well-being for millennia. Here, tea, or rather, tea-like infusions, are meticulously crafted not just for taste, but to balance the body's elemental forces and promote deep, restorative sleep. Imagine stepping into an Ayurvedic clinic. The air fragrant with a complex blend of spices and dried herbs, where practitioners speak of doshas and the subtle interplay of energy within the human form. This ancient tradition of using spiced teas for balancing body and mind is a mainstream historical fact of Indian culture. Ayurveda, meaning the science of life, views health as a harmonious balance of three primary doshas: vata, air and ether, pitta, fire and water, and kapha, earth and water. Imbalances in these doshas are believed to lead to various ailments, including sleeplessness. You learn that a skilled Ayurvedic practitioner wouldn't just give you sleep tea. They would assess your individual dosha imbalance and then recommend specific herbs and spices to address it. This personalized approach is key. You observe the preparation of an Ayurvedic tea, which is less about the leaf of Camellia sinensis and more about a symphony of spices and botanicals. Common ingredients include ashwagandha, a renowned adaptogen known for reducing stress and promoting calm; brahmi, used to support cognitive function and ease anxiety; cardamom, with its warm, aromatic notes that can soothe digestion; ginger, for its warming and anti-inflammatory properties; and nutmeg, often prescribed in small doses specifically for its sedative qualities. These aren't just thrown together. Their proportions are carefully considered to create a harmonious blend. The spices are often gently crushed and then simmered in water, sometimes with milk, allowing their therapeutic compounds to infuse the liquid. You can smell the rich, complex aroma filling the air, a blend of earthiness, warmth, and subtle sweetness that is immediately comforting. The resulting brew is thick, potent, and designed to penetrate deeply into the body's tissues, bringing about a sense of profound relaxation and balance. You sip it slowly, feeling the warmth spread through your chest, a gentle unclenching in your muscles, and a quiet settling of your thoughts. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Ayurvedic texts recommend a specific nighttime ritual involving warm milk infused with a pinch of nutmeg and saffron, sometimes even with a spoonful of ghee clarified butter, to induce restful sleep. It's the original warm milk before bed remedy, elevated to a science of specific ingredients for specific effects. Imagine this potent, fragrant elixir, a true ancient super drink for sleep, designed to gently guide you into dreamland. You might even find yourself considering swapping your usual bedtime snack for this rich, aromatic concoction. Historians still argue whether the complex classification of herbs and their specific effects on doshas in ancient Ayurvedic texts were purely based on empirical observation, or if there was an underlying theoretical framework that guided the system's development. Was it a gradual accumulation of practical knowledge, or a grand, unified theory of wellness from its inception? Regardless, its longevity and widespread use speak to its perceived effectiveness. The Kalma's effect of Ayurvedic teas stems from their holistic approach. You're not just treating a symptom, you're addressing the underlying imbalance. For example, if you're a Vata type, prone to anxiety and restless thoughts, your tea might focus on warming, grounding, and nourishing herbs. If you're a Pitta type, prone to irritability and overheating, your tea might include cooling and calming botanicals. This tailored approach ensures that the remedy is deeply effective for your unique constitution. The ritual of preparation and consumption, slow and deliberate, further reinforces the calming process. These spiced infusions are typically consumed in the evening, after the day's activities have wound down. The warmth, the comforting aromas, and the specific therapeutic properties of the herbs work synergistically to quiet the nervous system, soothe digestive discomfort, and relax the mind. You feel a gentle wave of drowsiness, not a heavy sedation, but a natural inclination towards rest. It's about coaxing the body and mind into a state of balance, which is the natural precursor to deep, rejuvenating sleep. So, in India, the path to soothing insomnia is often paved with the intricate wisdom of Ayurveda, offering not just teas, but personalized, aromatic elixirs designed to bring the body and mind into a state of perfect harmony. This ancient science offers a profound understanding of how specific botanicals can gently guide you to a night of peaceful slumber, a testament to humanity's enduring quest for restorative rest. Section 10. From the intricate balance and wisdom of Ayurvedic India, you now journey across the arid plains and ancient trade routes to the heart of Persia, a land renowned for its poetic beauty, its intricate carpets, and its deeply ingrained tradition of the chai khane, or tea house. Imagine stepping into one of these vibrant yet surprisingly serene spaces, the air perfumed with the sweet scent of brewing tea, and perhaps a hint of rosewater. You hear the gentle murmur of conversation, the soft clinking of small glasses, and feel an immediate sense of welcome and shared calm. These tea houses, serving as crucial social soothing spaces, are a mainstream historical fact of Persian culture. In Persia, tea arrived relatively late compared to East Asia, primarily via the Silk Road from China, gaining popularity in the 15th to 17th centuries. However, once it took root, it quickly became a central element of social life, particularly as a more readily available and less intoxicating alternative to coffee or wine. You observe the preparation's strong black tea, often brewed in a samovar, a heated metal urn with a spigot, keeping water hot for continuous brewing, or a traditional kettle. The tea concentrate, called chai rang, is then diluted with hot water to individual preference, and served in small, delicate glass cups called istekan. The unique way of drinking Persian tea is as much a part of the ritual as the brewing. You are offered a lump of rock sugar, or gand, which you hold between your teeth and then sip the hot tea through it, allowing the sugar to slowly dissolve and sweeten the bitter brew. This method, while seemingly simple, demands a certain focused attention. A gentle slowing down as you manage the sweet crystals and the hot liquid. It's a small, personal ritual within the larger communal setting. Here's a quirky tidbit in traditional Persian chai khane. Storytellers known as nakals would often recite epic poems like the Shahnameh Book of Kings, captivating audiences for hours. Imagine sipping your sweet tea, your mind eased by the warm liquid, as you listen to tales of heroes and ancient legends unfolding before you. This combination of communal gathering, calming tea, and engaging narrative created an atmosphere of deep relaxation and social connection, effectively acting as an ancient form of communal bedtime story, albeit for adults. You might find yourself drifting into a state of contented semi-slumber, lost in the narrative. Historians still argue whether the chai khane primarily served as centers for social discourse and storytelling, or if their inherent atmosphere of calm and the soothing properties of tea inadvertently made them crucial spaces for mental repose and escape from daily stresses. Was the chai khana a public forum or a sanctuary for the mind? Regardless, their dual function in both social connection and quiet respite is undeniable. The calming effect of the Persian chai khane is multifaceted. First, there's the tea itself, warm, comforting, and with a gentle stimulating effect that doesn't overexcite, but rather encourages a state of alert calm. Then there's the ritual of drinking through the sugar, which forces a mindful approach. But perhaps most importantly, it's the social environment. You are surrounded by the gentle hum of conversation, the soft clinking of cups, and the shared experience of quiet enjoyment. This communal presence, yet without the pressure of forced interaction, creates a profound sense of belonging and security. You're part of a gentle collective, easing into the evening together. The chai khane offered an escape from the demands of the day, a democratic space where people from all walks of life could gather, unwind, and find solace. You wouldn't find harsh lights or loud music here. Instead, the ambiance was designed for relaxation, soft lighting, comfortable seating, and the pervasive aroma of tea. This gentle atmosphere, combined with the warmth of the tea, naturally soothed frayed nerves and quieted anxious thoughts. It was a bridge between the active day and the quiet night, allowing the mind to slow its pace and prepare for rest. So, in Persia, the path to a peaceful evening and a good night's sleep was often found not just in the tea itself, but in the shared, gentle rituals of the chai khane. These vibrant yet tranquil spaces offered a unique blend of social connection and personal calm, a timeless reminder that sometimes The best way to soothe insomnia is through warm comfort, shared stories, and the quiet camaraderie of a well-brewed cup. Section 11. Stepping out of the aromatic and social warmth of the Persian chai khane, you now make a surprising, yet historically significant, detour to the sprawling Ottoman Empire. Here, long before tea became widely popular, another dark, invigorating, and deeply ritualistic beverage held sway: coffee. Imagine the bustling bazaars of Istanbul, the air thick with the scent of spices, leather, and roasting beans, and the inviting glow of a traditional coffee house kahvahan. While not tea, these establishments served a remarkably similar function to the tea houses you've explored, acting as vital social hubs and centers of serene repose. A mainstream historical fact that highlights shared cultural needs. Ottoman coffee culture, which flourished from the 16th century onwards, predated the widespread adoption of tea in many parts of the empire. You observe the meticulous preparation of Turkish coffee finely ground beans, simmered slowly in a small copper pot called a çetzvi, pronounced jezve, producing a rich, thick brew with a distinctive foam on top. It's served in small, handle-less cups, often placed in ornate metal holders. The very act of slowly sipping this potent liquid, allowing the grounds to settle at the bottom, demands a certain patience and presence of mind. You don't gulp Turkish coffee. You savor it, one small, intense sip at a time. While coffee, especially in its concentrated Turkish form, is known for its stimulating properties, the kahvahan offered a paradoxical sense of calm. These weren't rowdy taverns. They were often quiet, contemplative spaces where men gathered to discuss politics, tell stories, play board games like backgammon, or simply sit in thoughtful silence. The atmosphere was one of measured leisure, a deliberate slowing down of the day's pace. You'd find poets reciting verses, scholars debating philosophy, and ordinary citizens sharing news, all over cups of steaming, inky coffee. Here's a quirky tidbit. The reading of coffee grounds for fortune-telling, known as tasseography, became a popular pastime in Ottoman coffee houses. Imagine finishing your dense, aromatic coffee, then carefully inverting your cup onto its saucer, waiting for the grounds to dry and form patterns. A wise old woman or a local mystic might then interpret these shapes, offering insights into your future. This mystical element added another layer of quiet fascination and shared ritual to the coffee drinking experience. A gentle distraction that would undoubtedly ease the mind from daily worries. You might find yourself peering into the bottom of your cup, half joking, half hoping for a glimpse of tomorrow. Historians still argue whether the kahvahanis primarily served as sites of intellectual discourse and public information exchange, or if their true, enduring appeal lay in their function as tranquil social escapes where people could find a moment of peace. Did their cultural significance lie in their role as proto-newspapers and debate clubs, or as calming sanctuaries from the bustling city. Regardless, their capacity to provide a serene environment is undisputed. The calming effect of the Ottoman kava horn was less about the chemical properties of coffee and more about the ritual, the environment, and the social interaction. You're not just drinking a beverage, you're participating in a centuries-old tradition of communal respite. The low lighting, the comfortable cushions, the soft murmur of voices, and the pervasive aroma of coffee all conspired to create an ambiance conducive to relaxation. Even though coffee is a stimulant, the small, deliberate sips, combined with the unhurried atmosphere, prevented overstimulation and instead promoted a state of focused, yet relaxed, attention. These coffee houses served as essential third spaces, distinct from home and work, where individuals could decompress and find a sense of belonging. They offered a gentle transition from the demands of the day to a more leisurely evening, allowing the mind to unwind and shed its burdens. In a way, they provided a similar psychological function to the sleep-inducing tea rituals by creating a consistent, comforting routine that signaled to the body and mind that it was time to slow down. So, while not featuring tea as its central player, the Ottoman kavahan offers a fascinating parallel in the history of global calming rituals. It demonstrates that the need for a soothing, communal space and a deliberate, mindful beverage consumption ritual is universal, paving the way for similar customs involving tea to later flourish. You see how even a seemingly stimulating drink, when consumed within the right context and ritual, could contribute to a profound sense of peace and preparedness for restful slumber. Section 12. From the stimulating yet calming kavahan of the Ottoman Empire, you journey north, deep into the vast, snowy expanses of Russia. Here, amidst long, frigid winters and the timeless hospitality of its people, tea found its most iconic and communal expression around the samovar. Imagine the comforting glow of a brass samovar, its ornate spigot steaming gently, radiating warmth in a cozy izba traditional log house while snow falls softly outside. The air is filled with the sweet, robust aroma of brewing tea, a scent synonymous with home and heartfelt connection. This ubiquitous presence of the samovar and its associated tea ceremonies is a mainstream historical fact of Russian daily life. The samovar, a heated metal container often resembling an urn, became the centerpiece of Russian tea rituals from the 18th century onwards, replacing earlier, simpler methods of boiling water. You see it gleaming on the table, a constant source of hot water, allowing tea to be brewed continuously and served throughout the day, often into the late hours of the night. The process involves brewing a strong tea concentrate, called zavarka, in a small teapot placed on top of the samovar's chimney, kept warm by the rising heat. This concentrate is then diluted with hot water from the samovar's spigot to individual taste, ensuring each cup is perfectly to your liking. you're offered a glass of this hot, amber-colored tea, often with a slice of lemon, a spoonful of jam eaten separately, not stirred in, or a cube of sugar. The act of sipping this warm, comforting brew, perhaps accompanied by sweet pastries or simple bread, provides a profound sense of coziness and well-being. It's a slow, unhurried affair, allowing for long conversations, quiet contemplation, and the simple pleasure of shared warmth. Here's a quirky tidbit during the Soviet era, when samovars were still prevalent. Some resourceful individuals would even use them to distill homemade alcohol in secret, adding another layer of clandestine utility to this beloved appliance. Imagine the quiet hum of the samovar, ostensibly boiling water for tea, but perhaps also secretly churning out something a little stronger for special occasions. It adds a touch of mischievous charm to an otherwise wholesome domestic ritual. Historians still argue whether the Russian samovar's dominance was primarily a practical adaptation to cold climates, offering a continuous source of heat and hot beverages, or if its cultural significance evolved from its function as a focal point for family and social cohesion, fostering warmth both literally and figuratively. Was it a utilitarian tool or a symbol of togetherness? Regardless, its role in creating a comforting atmosphere is undisputed. The calming effect of Russian samovar ceremonies is deeply rooted in their communal and extended nature. You are not just drinking tea, you are participating in a fundamental social ritual that fosters connection and a sense of belonging. The continuous availability of hot tea encourages lingering, extended conversations, and a general slowing down of the pace of life. This unhurried atmosphere, combined with the physical warmth emanating from the samovar and the hot tea, creates a powerful sense of ease and security. You might spend hours around the samovar, sharing stories, playing games, or simply enjoying the comforting silence of shared presence. This deliberate slowing down, the gentle rhythm of pouring and sipping, and the pervasive feeling of warmth and companionship all contribute to a profound relaxation of the mind and body. It's a natural antidote to the anxieties of the day, easing you into a state receptive to rest. While Russian tea itself isn't inherently sedative, the ritual surrounding the samovar acts as a powerful psychological and physical precursor to sleep. It creates a consistent, comforting routine that signals to your body and mind that it's time to unwind. The warmth of the tea helps to relax muscles and promote a feeling of internal calm, while the social aspect fulfills fundamental human needs for connection, reducing stress and anxiety. You are wrapped in a cocoon of warmth and camaraderie, gently drifting towards a night of peaceful slumber. Section 13. From the enduring warmth of the Russian samovar, you now make a surprising, yet historically fascinating, leap across continents to the relatively cooler, rain-swept shores of Great Britain. Here, a tea tradition emerged that, while imported, became deeply ingrained in daily life and, perhaps unexpectedly, served as a structured moment of repose, often leading to a borrowed bedtime bliss. Imagine stepping into a refined drawing room in Georgian or Victorian England. The scent of fresh scones and strong tea mingling with the quiet murmur of polite conversation. This integration of tea into a structured moment of repose, particularly afternoon tea, is a mainstream historical fact of British culture. Tea arrived in Britain much earlier, in the 17th century, but it wasn't until the 19th century that it truly became a national obsession, thanks largely to the Duchess of Bedford, who popularized the concept of afternoon tea as a light meal between lunch and dinner. You see the elegant porcelain teacups, the silver teapots, and the tiered stands laden with delicate sandwiches, scones with clotted cream and jam, and an array of dainty pastries. The tea itself is typically a strong black tea, often from India or Ceylon, modern-day Sri Lanka, brewed robustly to withstand the addition of milk and sugar. The ritual of afternoon tea, while seemingly formal, was designed to break up the day, to offer a moment of respite and replenishment. You sit comfortably, perhaps by a crackling fireplace, sipping your hot tea, feeling its warmth spread through you. The conversation is often gentle, punctuated by the clinking of teaspoons and the rustle of starched napkins. It's a deliberate pause, a collective exhale in the midst of a busy day. And in that pause lies its calming power. Here's a quirky tidbit. The etiquette of afternoon tea could be incredibly complex, with specific rules about how to hold your cup, stir your tea, and even what to do with your pinky finger, though the extended pinky is often a misinterpretation of grace, not a hard rule. Imagine trying to navigate a social minefield just to get a spot of tea. Yet, despite these social pressures, the underlying intent was often to create an oasis of civility and calm, a brief escape from the rigors of social obligation or domestic duties. You might find yourself instinctively straightening your back, even as you relax into the moment. Historians still argue whether the elaborate rituals of British tea time, with their rigid social conventions, genuinely offered a moment of tranquil escape, or if they added another layer of performative stress to daily life. Did the elegance enhance relaxation, or was it merely a facade? Regardless, the widespread adoption of tea as a daily ritual speaks to its perceived comfort and respite. The calming effect of British tea time, particularly as a precursor to sleep, isn't about the tea's inherent sedative properties. Strong black tea is, after all, stimulating. Instead, it's about the structured routine and the psychological break it provides. You're transitioning from the active demands of the day to a moment of quiet leisure. The warmth of the tea, the comforting familiarity of the ritual, and the pleasant sensory experience of taste and aroma all signal to the body and mind that it's time to slow down, even if consumed in the late afternoon. This ritual provided a clear demarcation point, signaling the beginning of the winding down period. You wouldn't immediately jump back into intense work. Instead, the mind was gently nudged towards relaxation. For many, this structured repose would be the last significant activity before the evening meal and eventual bedtime, creating a psychological bridge to a more peaceful night's rest. It offered a moment to process the day, to gently disengage, and to prepare for the quiet hours ahead. So, in Britain, the path to a borrowed bedtime bliss wasn't found in exotic herbal infusions or ancient meditative practices, but in the comforting, predictable rhythm of a structured tea time. This imported ritual, perhaps unintentionally, became a powerful tool for mental decompression, offering a moment of quiet reflection and gentle relaxation that helped pave the way for a calmer evening and, ultimately, a more peaceful sleep. It proved that sometimes the simplest, most consistent routines can be the most effective lullabies. Having traversed the globe from ancient China to the refined drawing rooms of Britain, you now return to the present day, observing how these timeless Asian tea rituals, once confined to their specific cultural contexts, have been increasingly embraced and adapted by the Western world for the explicit purpose of wellness, stress reduction, and sleep. Imagine walking into a modern urban wellness studio, not for a yoga class, but for a mindful tea ceremony, or browse the aisles of a health food store filled with boxes of sleepy time teas boasting exotic-sounding ingredients. This adoption of Asian tea traditions for modern well-being is a mainstream historical fact of contemporary culture. The rapid pace and high stress levels of modern Western life have led to a renewed appreciation for ancient practices that promote calm and mindfulness. You see a clear shift from viewing tea merely as a caffeinated beverage to recognizing its potential as a tool for relaxation and inner peace. This has led to the rise of specialized tea shops focusing on ceremonial-grade matcha, herbal blends for specific ailments, and even guided tea meditations. You might find yourself in a brightly lit cafe, but with a quiet corner dedicated to the mindful preparation of tea, a deliberate oasis in the urban jungle. The influence of Japanese chado, with its emphasis on mindfulness and slow movements, is particularly evident. You might participate in a workshop where you learn to whisk matcha with precision, focusing on the rhythmic sound and the visual transformation of the liquid. Or you could attend a tea ceremony that, while adapted for a Western audience, still retains the core principles of quiet presence and appreciation for the ritual. It's about bringing the ancient wisdom of slowing down into your busy modern life. A quiet rebellion against constant connectivity. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some contemporary wellness brands are even experimenting with teapot systems that aim to replicate the complex steeping processes of traditional Asian teas, offering convenience while trying to maintain authenticity. Imagine a sleek, futuristic device on your counter that precisely brews a traditional Ayurvedic concoction or a Japanese ceremonial matcha with the push of a button. It's a fascinating attempt to marry ancient ritual with modern technology, a bit like having a tiny, automated tea sage in your kitchen. Historians still argue whether the Western appropriation and commercialization of these ancient tea rituals truly honor their original spiritual and cultural depth, or if they risk superficializing complex traditions for market appeal. Does the modern wellness industry dilute the true essence? Or does it simply democratize access to beneficial practices regardless? The undeniable impact these traditions are having on Western approaches to stress and sleep is evident. The calming effect in these modern adaptations often comes from a combination of factors. Firstly, the selection of tea itself, a preference for green teas, like matcha known for their L-theanine content, or a surge in interest in naturally caffeine-free herbal infusions like chamomile, lavender, or rooibos, often marketed explicitly for sleep. You're consciously choosing a brew designed to wind you down, rather than perk you up. Secondly, it's the re-emphasis on ritual and mindfulness. You're encouraged to engage with the preparation process, heating the water, watching the tea leaves unfurl, savoring the aroma. This deliberate engagement pulls you away from digital distractions and into the present moment. It transforms a simple act of drinking into a mini meditation, a personal ceremony to mark the end of the day and the transition to rest. You might find yourself consciously unplugging, putting your phone away, and truly focusing on the warmth of the mug in your hands. This modern rediscovery of ancient Asian tea traditions provides a gentle, accessible pathway to managing stress and preparing for sleep. By offering structured moments of tranquility and encouraging mindful consumption, these adapted rituals help to quiet the nervous system, reduce anxiety, and signal to the body that it's time to unwind. You're not just drinking a cup of tea, you're reclaiming a moment of peace, a quiet anchor in the stormy seas of modern life. Learning to lull yourself into a sweet slumber with the wisdom of the ancients. Having witnessed the modern Western world's embrace of ancient tea rituals, you now delve deeper into the very essence of why these practices are so profoundly calming. We're talking about the science of serenity, specifically focusing on a remarkable compound found in tea leaves, L-theanine. Imagine peering into the intricate molecular structures of tea. Understanding how a simple leaf can contain the key to quieting your mind and inviting restful sleep. This presence of L-theanine and its calming effects is a mainstream scientific fact that underpins tea's historical use for relaxation. You learn that while tea contains caffeine, the very thing that can keep you awake, it also possesses a unique amino acid called L-theanine. This compound works in fascinating ways to counteract the jittery effects of caffeine and instead promotes a state of relaxed awareness. It's like a scientific whisper to your brain. gently encouraging it to slow down without actually sedating it. Think of it as caffeine's chill sibling, always there to mellow things out. When you consume tea, L-theanine is absorbed and makes its way to your brain. Here's a quirky tidbit. Once in the brain, L-theanine has been shown to increase the production of alpha brain waves. These are the same brain waves associated with a state of wakeful relaxation, the kind you experience during meditation, daydreaming, or focused concentration. It's not the drowsy delta waves of deep sleep, nor the high-frequency beta waves of active thought. Instead, it's that sweet spot in between, where you feel calm, alert, and entirely at ease. It's like your brain is settling into a comfy armchair after a long day. Historians and scientists still argue about the precise evolutionary reason why L-theanine developed in the Camellia sinensis plant. Was it a defense mechanism against insects? Or did it serve another purpose before humans discovered its calming properties? Regardless, its beneficial effects on human cognition and relaxation are now well documented. Beyond alpha waves, L-theanine also influences key neurotransmitters in your brain. You see how it can increase levels of GABA-gamma-aminobutyric acid, a primary inhibitory neurotransmitter that helps to regulate nerve excitability and reduce anxiety. It's like pressing the mute button on an overactive mind. Additionally, L-theanine can boost levels of dopamine and serotonin, neurotransmitters often associated with mood regulation, pleasure, and well-being. This contributes to the overall sense of calm and contentment you feel after a soothing cup of tea. The beauty of L-theanine is that it provides a gentle, non-drowsy relaxation. You don't feel sedated or groggy. Instead, you feel a clear-headed calm, making it perfect for unwinding in the evening without the risk of heavy sleepiness too early. It's the subtle art of mental decluttering, preparing your mind for the deeper rest to come. Imagine your thoughts, which might have been buzzing like a swarm of bees, slowly beginning to settle and organize themselves, ready for a peaceful night. So, when you consider the historical reliance on tea rituals for soothing insomnia, the science behind it points directly to this remarkable compound. L-theanine provides a biochemical foundation for the tranquil states that ancient tea ceremonies aimed to achieve. It demonstrates that the calming power of tea is not merely psychological or ritualistic, but also deeply rooted in its very chemistry. You're not just participating in a pleasant tradition, you're leveraging millennia of natural evolution to gently guide yourself towards a serene night's rest. It's a subtle alchemy brewed in a leaf, and now understood by science. Section 16. Having explored the quiet magic of L-theanine, you now turn your attention to a broader, yet equally profound, aspect of tea's calming power, the ritual itself. It's not just about the chemistry of the leaves, it's about the deliberate, mindful acts of preparation and consumption that transform a simple drink into a powerful tool for tranquility. Imagine the steam rising from your cup, not just as water vapor, but as a visible manifestation of your anxieties gently dissipating. This understanding that the repetitive, mindful acts of tea preparation contribute significantly to relaxation is a mainstream psychological insight confirmed by historical observation. Think back to the various tea traditions we've explored. From the meticulous grinding of tea cakes in the Tang Dynasty to the precise whisking in Japanese chado, and even the simple, repetitive churning of Tibetan butter tea, every single one involves a series of intentional, often slow movements. You're engaging your senses, focusing your attention, and creating a deliberate pause in your day. This focused engagement is, in essence, a form of meditation in action. You see it clearly when you boil water. Select your leaves. Warm your teapot. And then carefully pour the steaming liquid. You're performing a sequence of actions that demand presence. Your mind, which might have been racing with worries or planning tomorrow's tasks, is gently redirected to the task at hand. The gentle clinking of porcelain, the soft gurgle of water, the unfolding aroma. These sensory inputs anchor you firmly in the present moment, pulling you away from the mental noise that often precedes insomnia. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient tea masters would even describe the sound of water boiling as the wind in the pines, or the bubbling of the tea as a dragon's breath. This poetic observation of simple phenomena elevated the mundane act of boiling water into a moment of natural beauty and contemplation. Imagine actively listening to your kettle, not just waiting for it to whistle, but truly appreciating the subtle changes in its sound. A tiny symphony unfolding in your kitchen. It's a playful reminder that peace can be found in the most ordinary moments if you just pay attention. Historians and modern psychologists still argue whether the ritualistic aspect of tea drinking developed inherently from a desire for spiritual contemplation, or if it was a practical evolution born from the need to improve consistency and quality, with the calming effects being a happy byproduct. Did the ritual create the calm? Or did the calm necessitate the ritual? Regardless, the synergistic relationship between the two is undeniable. The repetitive nature of the tea ritual is particularly potent for relaxation. You're not rushing, you're following a sequence. This predictability and gentle rhythm can be incredibly soothing to an overstimulated nervous system. It creates a sense of control and order in a chaotic world, signaling to your brain that it's safe to unwind. Your body begins to anticipate the relaxation, almost like a Pavlovian response, whenever you embark on your personal tea ceremony. This deliberate slowing down is a direct antidote to the fast-paced, always-on nature of modern life. You're giving yourself permission to disconnect, even for just a few minutes, and focus solely on the simple pleasure of preparing and consuming your tea. It's an act of self-care, a gentle whisper to your mind to release its grip on the day's stresses. The warmth of the cup in your hands, the steam on your face, the quiet sips, all contribute to a sensory experience that eases tension and encourages a deeper state of relaxation. So, beyond the subtle chemistry of L-theanine, the true power of ancient tea rituals for soothing insomnia lies in their embodiment of mindful presence. By engaging in the deliberate, repetitive acts of tea preparation, you create a sacred space for quiet contemplation, drawing your attention away from external distractions and internal anxieties. You're not just drinking a drink, you're performing a gentle, personal ceremony that prepares your mind and body for the peaceful embrace of sleep. It's a testament to humanity's timeless understanding that sometimes the simplest rituals hold the profoundest power for serenity. Section 17. Having understood the ritualistic power of tea, you now extend your exploration beyond the Camellia sinensis leaf itself, venturing into the vast and fragrant world of global spices for sleep. Imagine ancient kitchens, apothecaries, and homes where the very air was scented with remedies, and where a variety of natural ingredients, often consumed alongside or integrated into tea-like preparations, were revered for their ability to invite slumber. This widespread use of other soothing spices and herbs, beyond actual tea leaves, for sleep is a mainstream historical fact found across numerous cultures. Across Asia and beyond, humans intuitively discovered that certain spices and herbs held calming properties. You see ancient mothers stirring powdered spices into warm milk for restless children, or weary travelers adding pungent roots to their evening brews. These were not always tea in the traditional sense, but warm, aromatic infusions designed to soothe the body and quiet the mind. Consider nutmeg, for instance. You might know it best from your holiday eggnog, but historically, it was a potent sleep aid in many cultures, including parts of India and the Middle East. A small pinch, often added to warm milk or a mild herbal infusion, was believed to induce drowsiness. Here's a quirky tidbit in some ancient medical texts. Nutmeg was prescribed in quite significant doses, leading to a surprisingly strong sedative effect, sometimes even bordering on hallucinogenic. It's a reminder that ancient remedies often walked a fine line between therapeutic and mind-altering. Perhaps because the goal was often to completely disconnect from waking anxieties. You can almost hear an ancient physician cautioning, "Just a pinch, mind you, not a whole spoon." Historians still argue whether the precise dosages for these powerful natural sedatives were rigorously codified in ancient medical systems, or if much of the knowledge was passed down through oral tradition, relying on generations of empirical observation. Did ancient practitioners have sophisticated understanding of botanical chemistry? Or was it a delicate dance of trial and error? Regardless, the cumulative wisdom is evident. Then there's cardamom, often used in Middle Eastern and Indian cuisine. It's warm, slightly floral, and intensely aromatic pods were not just for flavor. They were revered for their digestive and calming properties. Often added to black tea or warm milk, It's believed to soothe an upset stomach, which can be a common culprit for restless nights. You feel the subtle warmth radiating from a cardamom-infused brew, a gentle hug for your insides. Cinnamon, another universally loved spice, also played a role. Its comforting sweetness and warming properties made it a popular addition to nighttime drinks, particularly in colder climates. It's known to help stabilize blood sugar, preventing the late-night crashes that can disrupt sleep. You might imagine a rustic hearth, a bubbling pot, and the sweet, woody scent of cinnamon filling the air as evening draws in. Beyond the familiar, you find more regional treasures. In some parts of Southeast Asia, roots like valerian, though native to Europe, its uses spread were known for their profound sedative effects. Often brewed as a pungent, earthy tea, or kava kava in the Pacific Islands, consumed as a ceremonial drink to induce relaxation and prepare for restful slumber, though its use requires careful consideration due to modern health advisories. The calming effect of these spices stems from a combination of their chemical properties. Many contain compounds that interact with neurotransmitters or soothe the digestive system, and the sheer comfort of a warm, aromatic drink at the end of the day. You're engaging in a sensory experience that signals to your body and mind that it's time to unwind. The rich aromas alone can trigger a relaxation response, independent of the actual compounds ingested. So, while tea leaves themselves offer a powerful calming component in L-theanine, the broader historical tapestry of sleep remedies is woven with countless other aromatic threads. These global spices, often integrated into tea-like preparations, offered ancient peoples a diverse pharmacopoeia of natural sedatives and soothing agents, helping to gently guide them into the arms of a peaceful night. You learn that humanity's quest for sleep has always been accompanied by a resourceful exploration of nature's calming bounty. Section 18. Having explored the individual calming properties of various spices and the chemical serenity of L-theanine, you now delve into a more enigmatic aspect of tea's history, the lost preparations and forgotten methods that may have enhanced its sedative qualities. Imagine ancient tea masters and healers possessing nuanced understandings of brewing techniques that went beyond simple steeping, perhaps unlocking deeper calming potentials from the tea leaf. You ponder whether some of the ancient wisdom about preparing tea for sleep has faded with time, replaced by more standardized, or perhaps less potent, modern methods. This idea of reclaiming ancient methods is a fascinating, if sometimes speculative, area of historical and scientific inquiry. You consider the earliest forms of tea, often consumed as crude, boiled leaves or pressed cakes. While not refined, these methods might have extracted different compounds than modern steeping, potentially including more of the bitter, less palatable, but perhaps more sedative components. What if the very harshness of some ancient brews contributed to their efficacy as a sleep aid by thoroughly relaxing the body? Or what if, through specific long simmering processes, certain beneficial compounds were maximized. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some very early methods of tea preparation involved fermentation or aging processes that were far less controlled than modern techniques, sometimes even involving burying tea cakes underground for years. It's plausible that these uncontrolled microbial interactions might have produced unique metabolites with unforeseen calming properties, or even acted as rudimentary probiotics influencing gut-brain axis. A concept ancient people wouldn't have understood, but might have experienced. You can almost taste the earthy, time-worn essence of such a brew, a flavor profile utterly alien to your modern palate. Historians still argue whether the complexity of some lost ancient brewing techniques was primarily a result of necessity, lack of proper processing tools, or if they represented a sophisticated, albeit empirically derived, understanding of how to maximize certain effects from the tea plant. Were these methods rudimentary or subtly brilliant? Regardless, the sheer variety of ancient practices suggests a deep exploratory phase in tea preparation. You also think about the addition of other botanicals during preparation that might now be overlooked. In some ancient traditions, tea was not just tea. It was a base for various infusions. Were there specific flowers, barks, or resins that were regularly simmered with tea leaves, and whose calming synergy has since been forgotten? Perhaps a certain type of calming moss, or a specific tree resin, was always added to evening tea in a particular region, and that knowledge has simply not been passed down. Consider the role of specific heating methods. Did ancient tea masters use different types of wood for their fires, influencing the smoke and heat in ways that subtly altered the tea's chemistry or aroma in a calming manner? Or perhaps the materials of the brewing vessels, special clay pots, unglazed earthenware, interacted with the tea in ways that are not replicated in modern porcelain or metal teapots, influencing the final brew's soothing properties. You might imagine the subtle earthen flavors contributing to a grounded, relaxing sensation. The act of reclaiming these lost preparations isn't just about historical accuracy. It's about exploring the full spectrum of tea's potential. Could an ancient, long-simmered, slightly bitter brew with a forgotten herb actually provide a deeper, more profound sense of sleep-inducing relaxation than your familiar bagged tea? It encourages you to think beyond the immediate and consider the long, experimental journey humanity took to master the tea leaf. So, in the quest for ultimate sleep, you reflect on the fascinating possibility that some of the most potent calming tea remedies might lie hidden in the annals of forgotten practices. By pondering these lost preparations, you gain a deeper appreciation for the ancient human ingenuity that tirelessly sought ways to soothe insomnia, even in the absence of modern scientific understanding, reminding you that sometimes the simplest answers are the oldest ones. Section 19. Having speculated about the forgotten brewing methods, you now shift your focus to a very modern concern with ancient roots: the environmental impact of tea cultivation, and how traditional practices often embodied a remarkably sustainable footprint. Imagine vast, ancient tea gardens, not just as sources of a soothing beverage, but as thriving ecosystems, tended by generations who understood the delicate balance between cultivation and conservation. This connection between traditional tea practices and a gentle, sustainable footprint is a mainstream ecological understanding. Historically, tea cultivation, particularly in its earliest forms, was inherently more sustainable than much of modern agriculture. You see small family plots, often nestled on hillsides, where tea plants grew alongside other native flora, fostering biodiversity. There was no reliance on heavy machinery, synthetic pesticides, or vast monocultures. Instead, cultivation often involved hand-picking, natural fertilization from compost or animal manure, and a deep respect for the land. Consider the traditional shade-grown teas you might find in Japan or parts of China. You imagine tall trees deliberately planted among the tea bushes, protecting the delicate leaves from harsh sunlight. This isn't just about flavor. It's an ecological strategy. The shade trees enrich the soil with their leaf litter, prevent erosion on slopes, and provide habitats for local wildlife. It's a harmonious coexistence, creating a microclimate that benefits both the tea and the surrounding environment. You might feel the subtle coolness of the shade, a welcome relief on a warm day. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient tea gardens were so integrated into the natural landscape that they were considered part of the sacred geography of a region. Local legends might speak of benevolent spirits dwelling in the tea trees or the surrounding mountains, encouraging careful stewardship of the land. This intertwining of ecological practice with spiritual belief likely fostered an even deeper commitment to sustainable cultivation. Imagine a tea farmer not just tending crops, but communing with the land and its ancient guardians. Historians and ecologists still argue whether traditional agricultural practices were inherently sustainable due to conscious foresight and ecological understanding, or if they were simply a consequence of limited technology and resources. Was it a deliberate choice to live in harmony with nature, or a pragmatic adaptation? Regardless, the lower environmental impact of these historical methods is clear. The gentle footprint of traditional tea cultivation extends beyond the farm. You think about the minimal processing involved in many early teas simply drying in the sun, or perhaps gentle roasting. This required very little energy compared to modern industrial processes. Packaging was often natural: bamboo, woven mats, or paper, and transportation relied on human or animal power, minimizing carbon emissions. You envision caravans of camels or donkeys laden with tea bricks, slowly traversing mountain passes, leaving behind only dust and hoof prints. This sustainable approach has direct implications for the calming properties of the tea itself. When you consume tea grown in a healthy, biodiverse environment, free from harsh chemicals, you are arguably ingesting a purer product. The sense of well-being derived from knowing your tea comes from a place of ecological harmony, can subtly enhance its calming effect. It's not just a product, it's a connection to a balanced, thriving, natural world. You're not just drinking a beverage, you're participating in a cycle of respectful cultivation. So, as you reflect on the forgotten Asian tea rituals that soothed insomnia, it's worth appreciating that many of these practices were intrinsically linked to a mindful, sustainable relationship with the environment. The gentle ways of cultivating, processing, and consuming tea weren't just good for the soul, they were often good for the planet, too. Offering a quiet example of how humanity once found deep rest in harmony with nature. Having explored the deep roots of sustainability in ancient tea practices, you now arrive at the very end of our journey. Peering into the future, how these enduring tea rituals might continue to evolve and serve as nightly nods to tranquility in an ever-changing world. Imagine a future where technology and ancient wisdom intertwine, offering new pathways to sleep through the timeless comfort of tea. This speculation on the future of tea rituals is a fascinating continuation of their long, soothing history. You consider the pressures of modern life, the constant notifications, the blue light from screens, the ever-present hum of information overload. In this context, the need for effective, gentle ways to wind down will only intensify. Tea rituals, with their inherent mindfulness and calming properties, are perfectly positioned to meet this growing demand. You envision smart homes where the lights dim automatically as your sleep tea brews. The ambient temperature adjusts, and gentle, nature-inspired sounds fill the room, all orchestrated to guide you toward slumber. Perhaps future tea rituals will incorporate even more personalized elements. Imagine a diagnostic tool that analyzes your sleep patterns or stress levels, then recommends a perfectly customized tea blend, delivered to your door. Complete with precise brewing instructions and a guided meditation to accompany each sip. It's the ultimate bespoke lullaby, tailored just for you. You might even have smart tea sets that monitor your heart rate and breathing, signaling when you've reached an optimal state of relaxation. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some futuristic concepts include aroma-diffusing teapots that release calming scents into the air as your tea brews, creating a multi-sensory envelope of relaxation. Or perhaps tea leaves grown in controlled, vertical farms, optimized for maximum L-theanine content, ensuring every brew is a potent sleep elixir. You can almost smell the soothing vapor, feel it wrapping around you as you prepare for rest. Historians and futurists still argue whether the increasing integration of technology into these ancient rituals will enhance their spiritual depth or fundamentally alter their essence, potentially stripping them of their human connection. Will technology serve as a bridge to deeper calm, or a barrier to authentic presence. Regardless, the drive to leverage tea for well-being is unlikely to wane. The future of tea rituals for sleep will likely emphasize the mind-body connection even more explicitly. You might see virtual reality experiences that transport you to tranquil tea gardens while you sip your brew, or biofeedback devices that help you learn to consciously slow your heart rate as you engage with the ritual. The focus will remain on creating a deliberate, peaceful transition from wakefulness to slumber, leveraging both ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science. You also imagine a resurgence of community-focused tea rituals, perhaps in dedicated sleep cafes or tranquility hubs where people gather in the evenings, not for stimulating conversations, but for shared silence, mindful tea, and gentle activities designed to prepare for rest. It's a return to the communal soothing of ancient tea houses, but with a modern twist. Recognizing that shared calm can be even more potent. Ultimately, the future of these forgotten Asian tea rituals for sleep is bright precisely because they tap into a timeless human need, the desire for peace, tranquility, and restorative rest. Whether through high-tech innovations or a renewed appreciation for simple, mindful practices, the humble tea leaf and the rituals surrounding it will continue to be a whispered promise of sweet dreams. As the quiet settles, and the echoes of ancient tea rituals fade into the soft hum of the present moment, you feel a gentle wave of drowsiness begin to wash over you. The long journey through history, filled with comforting aromas and mindful traditions, has eased your mind, slowing its endless chatter, calming the restless currents that often keep sleep at bay. You are no longer actively listening, but simply existing in this peaceful space we've created together. Let the gentle warmth you've imagined, the quiet rituals, and the timeless wisdom of forgotten paths to slumber envelop you now. Feel your breath deepen, your muscles release their tension, and the soft darkness of the night begin to embrace you fully. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to think, just the quiet descent into the comfort of your own dreams. Allow yourself to drift, lightly, beautifully, into the profound peace of sleep. Sweet dreams.